What was the happiest day of your life? For me, it was the day my little brother spoke again after 2 years of total silence. When I was 13, our car got hit by a drunk driver. I walked away with some bruises. My brother Eli, who was only 8, didn't talk for 2 years straight after that, just stopped. The doctor said it was trauma from the crash, that his brain needed time to process everything. My mom tried everything. Therapists who made him draw pictures, specialists who did brain scans. She even joined these weird Facebook groups where people recommended essential oils and sound therapy. Nothing worked. The kid who used to narrate his entire day like a sports commentator went completely silent. He'd just write stuff in notebooks and stare at his shoes. I became his bodyguard, basically. I'm 15 now, and for 2 years I walked him to school every morning, sat with him at lunch so nobody would call him weird, turned down parties because what if he had a breakdown and I wasn't there? My friends stopped inviting me places. I didn't really care. Eli needed me. Most days were just quiet. We'd sit on the couch and watch TV together. He'd tap my arm when he wanted something, and I learned to read what he meant. Some days were really dark though. He'd cry silently in his room, and I'd just sit on the floor next to his bed until he fell asleep. Mom would cry in the kitchen when she thought we couldn't hear. Then one Saturday everything changed. Mom had been saving money for months. She worked double shifts at the hospital just to afford tickets to this comic convention in our city. Eli used to be obsessed with superheroes before the accident. He had action figures lined up on his shelf in this super specific order, and he'd make up stories about them fighting together. Mom thought maybe going to the con would remind him of the good stuff. Honestly, I thought it was kind of pointless, but I didn't want to ruin it for her. We got dressed up that morning. I put on this Spider-Man costume I borrowed from my friend Travis. It was too small and the mask made my face sweaty, but whatever. Eli didn't want a full costume, but he let Mom pin this little Batman button on his hoodie. That was huge for him. He barely let anyone touch him anymore. The convention center was packed and loud, people in crazy costumes everywhere. Eli stayed close to me, hands shoved deep in his pockets. He seemed okay with the noise, which surprised me. We walked around looking at booths with comics and collectibles. Mom kept pointing at stuff trying to get him excited, but he just nodded. Then we turned a corner and there was this guy dressed as Batman. Not like a cheap costume either. This was the full thing. Black armor, cape, the voice modulator that made him sound like the actual Batman. He even had a little speaker clipped to his belt playing the theme song. The guy saw Eli's pin and crouched down to his level. He said in that deep Batman voice, "Nice pin, kid. You got the heart of a real hero." I was about to say thanks and move on because I didn't want Eli to feel pressured to respond, but then I heard it. Quiet, barely there, but I heard it. Eli whispered, "You too." I literally froze. My whole body went stiff. I thought maybe I imagined it, but the Batman guy smiled under his mask and gave Eli a fist bump. I turned to look at Eli. He was looking up at Batman, and then he looked at me and said, "Can we find the booth with the posters?" His voice was scratchy, soft like he hadn't used it in forever, which he hadn't. I couldn't help it. I grabbed him and hugged him so tight that some volunteer lady came over asking if we were okay. I was crying. Mom was crying. Even Batman looked like he might cry. We spent the whole rest of the day just walking around. Eli wasn't talking in full paragraphs or anything. His voice was shaky and quiet, but he'd point at things and say a few words. "That's cool. I like that one. Can we get nachos?" We got nachos. We got everything he wanted. At one point we sat down to eat and he looked at me and said, "Sorry I was quiet for so long." I told him he didn't have anything to be sorry for. He said, "I wanted to talk but I didn't know how anymore." Today felt different. Mom asked what made today different. He shrugged and said, "Batman told me I was a hero. Heroes talk." It was the best worst logic I'd ever heard, but it worked. That night after we got home, Eli was tired. He went to his room and I thought he'd just crash, but he came back out holding a folded piece of paper. He handed it to me without saying anything. I opened it. It was a drawing he must have done in the car on the way home. It showed Batman and Spider-Man shaking hands. Under it he wrote in messy letters, "Best day ever."